The war in Ukraine started back in 2014, and since then the fact of the rape of Ukrainian women by soldiers of the Russian army have been recorded. It was January 15, 2015. I once again went to the anti-terrorist operation zone to take warm things and food to our guys. When I left Mariupol, two cars suddenly appeared and pushed me straight off the road to the forest. Acts of violence against women and children were recorded in all of them. Is rape. This crime is silent. A gang rapes. Raped her several times. Is a double power over a woman or a child. Deep psychological trauma. This is a method of waging war. Do not have a statute of limitations.
Росія атакувала всю територію нашої держави.
Russian invasion has begun.
Russia launching a full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Military operation against Ukraine.
A large-scale invasion of Russian Federation in Ukraine began on February 24, 2022. Complete destruction of cities and villages, seizure of property and looting, wounding and murder, torture, forced displacement and kidnapping of the civilian population, sexual violence, rape of girls and women, men and boys. This is the Russian aggressor's pattern. According to the norms of international law, sexual violence in conflict is defined as a wide range of actions that include but are not limited to rape, threats and attempts of any forms of rape or threats and attempts of other sexual assaults, female genital mutilation, sexual slavery, sexual torture, forced prostitution, forced pregnancy, forced sterilization and forced abortion, forced nudity. Sexual violence is the strategy of the Russian Federation aimed to achieve military goal by all means. It is an attempt to intimidate and humiliate civilian population aimed at destroying national identity and honor. This is a part of genocide against the Ukrainian people. It is a core intimidation of civilians because this crime is silent. It is even the cheapest because it does not require the use of bombs or other weapons, and it is a crime that is usually not talked about. A separate type of war crimes committed by the Russian occupiers, which has reached an unprecedented scale, is rape. Moreover, victims are not only women but also children, boys, men. Women are raped in the presence of children, and children in the presence of family and parents. There are direct instructions. This is a method of waging war. There are mass cases. This is a method of intimidation.
Any act of sexual violence committed in the context of the armed conflict, so by armed forces, the armed forces of the Russian military, for example, classify as war crime. For example, you have a person in a village or in a town that was occupied, and they were threatened to do something, and if not, their kid would be raped, or the kid would be sexually assaulted. And this is also included in the sexual violence that can constitute war crimes.
Rape, sexual slavery, enforced prostitution, forced pregnancy, enforced sterilization, or any other form of sexual violence constituting a grave breach of the Geneva Convention and are considered to be war crimes regardless of whether they are committed in an international or non-international armed conflicts. We had 12 territorial communities occupied, which is 2/3 of the district. Acts of violence against women and children were recorded in all of them. Men were shot and left where bodies fell. And if women were shot or became victims of violent actions, Russian soldiers tried to burn them in their houses or throw them into mass graves. We find such mass burial sites every day. As a rule, everyone has controlled shots to the head. I don't understand why. As a rule, victims have their nails torn and ears cut off. Bodies with severed scalps were also found. The cars of the Donetsk People's Republic separatists pushed my car into the forest lane. I had to stop. They grabbed me by force, pulled me out of the car, threw me to the ground. I was immediately hit in the face with the buttstock. According to the international criminal and humanitarian law, conflict-related sexual violence qualifies not only as a war crime, but also as a crime against humanity and the act of genocide. It is now known that the acts of sexual violence by the army of the Russian Federation in Ukraine are a strategy. There are no typical victims of this crime. The victims are women and men of various ages as well as children. Many of the victims do not report these crimes in order not to experience re-traumatization and not to become the subjects of discussion. It often takes a lot of time for them to start telling what they have come through. As a government, we are currently building a system of such services that will help people, first of all, receive medical, psychological and legal assistance. Conflict-related sexual violence has irreparable consequences for the victims like bodily injuries, including serious ones, inability to have children in the future, deep psychological trauma, as well as the impact on the social relations of the survivor. Already, after 4 months of the war, such countries as Ukraine, Estonia, Latvia, Canada, Poland, Lithuania, the Czech Republic and Ireland recognize the actions of the Russian Federation in Ukraine as genocide. A special feature of genocide, which distinguishes it from other international crimes, is the intention to destroy, in whole or in part, any national, ethnic, racial or religious group. For the 8th year in a row, together with the Ukrainians, we, the indigenous people, suffer. I am a representative of the Crimean Tatars, and we have been reconstructing our identity in Ukraine for years, and today it is under threat. These Nazis will grow up and will become like their parents. They all should be killed. Fuck them. You are so kind. I would inject them with drugs. If I were working, I would look them into the eyes and say, die, suffer. I would also cut their genitals off, cut out stars on their backs, and in general, I would cut off their ears and fingers every day, so that they would be in pain. These are children, Yulia. I hate these Ukrainians, Vova. I hate them so much I would even shoot their children. International law includes murder, torture, enslavement, extermination, imprisonment and sexual violence as crime against humanity. These crimes are exactly what the Russian Federation committed in Bucha, Gostomel, Mariupol, Kherson and other cities of Ukraine. Eyewitnesses told us about the case when Russians found a uniform that a 65-year-old man bought to go to fishing before the invasion. So they made him strip every day for a whole week and run naked around the house for an hour. It is one of many testimonies that I remember, a story told by a woman who witnessed such crimes. Once Russian soldiers came into the basement where she was hiding with other women. The soldiers ordered to choose the one they would rape. Women of course talked among themselves, cried. But then, well, it's hard for me to imagine how you choose the one. And then the Russians found and captured 2 women whom they decided to rape. They were raped and one of them did not return. At that time, in the basement of the neighboring house, Russians raped a young girl who was 17 years old. The actual sexual violence by the occupiers is a double power over a woman or a child, a man or a boy. In addition to the fact that you are being raped, your settlement is also being raped. They knocked out all my teeth, broke my arm. They tore off my clothes and stabbed out cigarettes against my body. There were 8 of them in total. 6 were local separatists, and 2 other were Russians. It was clear from their pronunciation. People spend weeks, months, or even years in captivity. I spent 40 minutes. Those were the most terrifying 40 minutes of my life.
Але це найстрашніші 40 хвилин в моєму житті.
Sexual violence in a conflict is a war crime, and its disclosure does not necessarily require victims' testimony or a forensic examination. The occupied territory may be liberated later, so the forensic examination will not give any results. This is why eyewitness testimony is so important. A family from Kiev came to celebrate March the 8th in their private house. A man, a woman and a 3-year-old child. They were at their place of residence. The next day, the village was occupied. Soldiers of the Russian Federation walked the streets. Soldiers came to their home and tried to hurt the woman. The man tried to protect her. They shot him dead and also killed 2 dogs. After that, 2 of them returned in the evening drunk, raped her several times, threatening to use violence against her 3-year-old child. And so that evening, they returned 3 times.
І так в цей вечір вони поверталися тричі, знущаючись над нею.
The woman and the child managed to escape. Investigators of the National Police and the Security Service of Ukraine gathered enough evidence and eyewitness testimony to bring one of the criminals to court, Mikhailo Sergeyevich Romanov, a serviceman of the military unit 8954, stationed in the city of Chebarkul, Chelyabinsk region of the Russian Federation. This category of crime, specifically crimes of sexual nature, falls under Article 448 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine, violation of the laws and customs of war. There are several dozen criminal proceedings of a kind, led by units of the security services of Ukraine. First of all, they are investigated in those regions which border or are on the demarcation line with active hostilities. Sexual violence is a marker of the ideology of Russian world, which denies the value of freedom and democracy and is based on the principles of domination and the power of the stronger. The Security Service of Ukraine regularly publishes the conversations of the Russian occupiers, publicizing them as evidence of crimes against humanity in Ukraine. We clean basements. Do you know how? We don't ask who is there, but immediately throw a grenade. Fuck, I don't care at all. Our squad is called a suicide squad. Seriously? Squad of thugs. The men were telling stories about a squad who caught a chick to fuck. They cut off her tongue so that she wouldn't tell anything, and they fucked her and killed afterwards. I do some incredible stuff here. Fuck everyone. I don't care at all. Civilian? Non-civilian? Yeah, I know. I'm cutting ears, damn it. I can take a knife, cut off the ears. Max, I don't care at all. I can even do that in Russia. They started raping me. Each of them did it.
Наші хлопці, українські військові,
Our guys, the Ukrainian military, were waiting for me for half an hour. But when I did not show up, they began to worry and decided to look for me.
Вони почали хвилюватися і виїхали мені на зустріч.
Russian President Putin gave an honorary title for exemplary actions to the 64th Brigade, which committed war crimes during its stay in the city of Bucha. The decree of the President of the Russian Federation states that the honorary rank of guards was awarded to the 64th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade for massive heroism and bravery, resilience and courage shown by the personnel of the brigade in combat operations for the protection of the motherland and the state interests in the conditions of the armed conflicts.
Він просто ставить
He simply puts an equal sign. Vladimir Putin equals a war criminal, because this is the order and encouragement of brutal illegal actions that are completely unrelated to the laws of any war.
будь-якої війни.
A Russian military man should remember several important things when he really wants to encroach on the rights and freedoms and therefore the lives of Ukrainian children, men and women. First of all, it will not be just sexual violence, it will be a war crime. Second of all, the prosecutor's office and law enforcement agencies of Ukraine can start an investigation into the fact of sexual violence as a war crime, even based on a report in open sources. War crimes, crimes against humanity, the crime of genocide do not have a statute of limitations. International criminal and humanitarian law recognizes sexual violence in armed conflicts as a crime, and the people who commit sexual violence and the leadership of the state which tactically approves such actions are criminals. The decision of Ukrainian military to search for me saved my life. None of those who raped me survived. They remained in that forest strip. I continued volunteering. Now we are weaving nets and preparing food for fighters. My husband is on the front lines. The son works in a hospital. He went to Borodyanka to help criminal investigators. He says that he will never forget the horror he saw there. After the beginning of the full-scale invasion, we have decided to support a publication 100 stories of women and girls from war of Russia against Ukraine. Unfortunately, a number of stories are testimonies of rape committed by occupiers. Most rapes are gang rapes. Moreover, they are performed by men of different age from 18 to 60. The sexual crimes of the Russian army in Ukraine showed the world the true, vile face of Russia. These crimes are horrifying. One does not want to believe in them, but this unfortunately is the real policy of Russia. We all work together, the investigators of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Security Service of Ukraine and the General Prosecutor's Office. We want to document all these crimes that took place on the territory of Kiev region as quickly and efficiently as possible until physical evidences were destroyed. We also involve international experts. There were also representatives of the International Criminal Court. We involve journalists, representatives of governments, representatives of parliaments of all countries. We have truth on our side. And when our friends from abroad hear these stories, they should understand that these are not just words or pictures. This is the real grief of real people. There is a very powerful coalition of public organizations which documents Russia's war crime against Ukraine in all regions of the country. It is called the Tribunal for Putin and includes the Ukrainian Helsinki Union for Human Rights, the Center for Civil Liberties, the Kharkiv Human Rights Group. As a government official, I also cooperate with them together with the public organization La Strada Ukraine. We work with dozens of regional organizations in the initiative Tribunal for Putin. There are 11,990 criminal episodes in our joint database. Our human rights initiative alone has collected such a huge amount of cases. We need international support, and we are talking about the need to create an international hybrid tribunal. We have a database that is being collected by the Tribunal for Putin initiative. To date, there are approximately 14,500 documented war crimes. The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court in The Hague, Karim Khan, initiated an investigation into Russia's crimes against Ukraine. He qualifies the occupiers' actions as war crimes and crimes against humanity. I can confirm that today my office has dispatched a team of 42 investigators, forensic experts and support staff to Ukraine to advance our investigations into crimes under the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court and to provide support to the national authorities of Ukraine. This is the largest single field deployment of my office since its inception. Russia as a state and its leadership and all the criminals who invaded Ukraine must answer for every mutilated person, for every destroyed house, for every broken life, financially, by paying reparations and destroying damaged infrastructure facilities in Ukraine, all that they have broke or destroyed here, and in criminal court, serving long term of imprisonment.